Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel with a story from my old stomping grounds back in Massachusetts where a gun owner, which is already a bit of a unicorn there, stopped a felon who somehow bypassed all the state's strict gun control laws and was shooting at cars on one of the busiest streets in one of the busiest cities in the Boston area. And even wilder, at this point we don't have any reports of the gun owner being hit with charges, which is basically unheard of there. Now, one thing that is easy to do in Massachusetts, or so I'm told, is get an illegal gun. With all the gun control, drugs, and gangs, there's plenty of crime, and where there's plenty of crime, there's also illegal guns. Seeing as 46-year-old Tyler Brown is a felon from, wow, engaging in a shooting spree 6 years ago where he shot at a bunch of cops, we can assume he knew a guy who knew a guy, or at least knew a guy who knew a street corner. Last time around, in May 2020, while still on probation for a 2014 assault and battery with a dangerous weapon charge, Brown fired 13 shots at police who were responding to a 911 call about a man with a gun. 2 cops shot back, and miraculously, no one was hit. Kind of like in Star Wars or A-Team. Brown pleaded guilty to charges including armed assault with intent to murder and attempted assault and battery by means of discharging a firearm for firing at a Boston police officer. Prosecutors asked for a 10 to 12-year sentence, especially considering he was on probation at the time for the other assault charge and witness intimidation. Instead, he was given 5 to 6 years, and people involved in that attack said they were confident that when he got out, he would hurt people again. Then he was released early to serve the remainder of his sentence under supervision in a rooming house. Now note, this was not all that unusual when I was working with the criminologic population as a therapist with a nonprofit. So, same old, same old. Turns out, those warnings were not wrong, though luckily a gun owner was around this time to help, and so the damage was not as bad as it could have been. But before we get into Monday's events, this video is brought to you by the Attorneys on Retainer program by the Attorneys for Freedom. Now, I have talked about them a bunch of times on the channel, how it's a law firm that specializes in self-defense cases, and so if you are a member and a self-defense incident happens, you call their hotline and boom, you have a team, a full team of lawyers on your case and offering on-the-spot advice. Well, I have a little bit of an exciting update about that. As I said, we are celebrating 250 years of freedom in America, and AOR is doing something big to market. So right now with my code, you can get $50 off the individual membership, which is cutting the sign-up fee in half. And if you go with the family plan instead, you will get $25 off that sign-up fee. Even when you do everything right, a self-defense situation can spiral very quickly. I'm talking legal troubles, cost, stress. AOR makes sure that you are not facing that alone and that protecting yourself doesn't end up costing you everything. This is about keeping your freedom secure, and there is no better time to think about that than right now. So do not wait on this one. It is a limited time offer and it is available right now at my link down in the description. Now, back to Monday. Around 1:30 p.m., Brown decided to just randomly open fire into traffic on Memorial Drive, which is about a 4-mile stretch that runs along the Dirty Charles. That's the big river. According to a police report cited by WBUR, he was released from McLean, that's the big, famous local psych hospital, only 3 days before. About an hour before the shooting, he allegedly told his parole officer, "These people are going to effing pay." Over FaceTime, while high and waving around a rifle. Clearly, this guy doesn't care about the law. The parole officer called police and warned them that Brown was at risk, had relapsed on crack, and was suicidal. The police tried to track him down with the help of the U.S. Secret Service, which, wild? They apparently gave Boston PD a 1,000-foot radius to look for Brown in, and after another search warrant, it was narrowed down to 100 meters. After that, Brown went and fired 60 rounds into Cambridge traffic. 2 men were hospitalized with life-threatening injuries, an MBTA driver and a DoorDash driver. Ultimately, an ex-Marine who was also previously a firearms instructor helped a state trooper take Brown down. But get this. Because of Massachusetts gun laws, he had to stop get out of the car, and unlock the handgun safe in the back seat of his car in order to get his 9mm out after he saw Brown shooting at a state trooper. Dude is lucky he didn't get shot while trying to reach his gun to stop other people from getting shot. Brown was hit in the extremities and is getting treatment at a Boston ICU. The hero gun owner who stepped in has not been identified. Well, I should back that up. He has not been identified to the public. They are saying that he is a legal gun owner, so the cops know enough about who he is to know that. And maybe somebody's protecting him, whatever. Either way, if he's smart, he's gonna stay that way. Otherwise, there's the potential for charges, though. He had a license. Sounds like he was complying with the state's storage and transport laws. And because Brown lived, so far, all of those would be in his favor. Though, if the gun used was a handgun, the fact that it was being stored in a locked container in the back seat suggests to me that he probably did not have a license to carry, because then it would have been allowed to be on his person and like nowhere else but a lockbox. But that part doesn't really matter much in the grand scheme of things. So, another thing that leads me to believe he would still be facing charges is that the state trooper already has legal counsel and has already made statements through that legal counsel. Now, it's different because he's a cop and there's, the officer involved shootings are always investigated. But again, his lawyer has already had to make statements about how, he did his duty and justified force, blah, 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 blah. Because Massachusetts has laws specifically requiring equal or lesser force and, duty to retreat and all of these other things. So, if this gun owner was known, he'd probably be having to lawyer up too if he hasn't already, just in case. But even more shocking, the Middlesex District Attorney Marion Ryan praised the gun owner, saying this incident lasted minutes thanks to the actions of that trooper and that civilian. Color me completely surprised. At least a dozen cars were hit, though those are the only injuries we know of right now. People were just stopping their cars and bailing. Another woman who said that the gun owner opened her car door and used it as a barricade said, "And he used the door as a barricade and he stayed. I didn't know at the time that he was a former Marine. I didn't even think about why he had a gun, but I could just tell that he was a good guy. And I don't know who he is. He doesn't owe me that to know who he is, but I do hope that if he's watching this coverage, he knows he truly is a hero who saved lives." I would like to note that all of the news coverage around this is very specific to mention, I should say the local news coverage from Massachusetts is very careful and specifically mentioning that he is an ex-Marine. If they did not have that information, I am willing to bet that the reporting on him would be different and there would probably be a lot less of it. He gets a free pass here in the eyes of the media because of his service record. In my opinion, knowing Massachusetts the way I do. Either way, seeing the gratitude in the news media and from some of the bigwigs out in Boston, it's different. It's nice. From research that I've covered on this channel, we already know that outside of gun-free zones, regular, everyday gun owners are far more likely to stop mass shootings and attempted mass shootings than the police. It just often goes unreported in the media. Brown faces multiple charges, including gun possession and possession of a high-capacity mag because, Massachusetts has a so-called assault weapons ban and high-capacity magazine ban too, but, those didn't stop him either. Because gun control works. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this video. You guys know the drill. For all of the algorithm things, please do them. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there and happy shooting. I won't lie to you guys, I really wanted to bring the Boston out some more in this one, but you can't bring out the Boston without F-bombs, and YouTube doesn't like the F-bombs.